Hi, guys. Welcome back to Babylon, where we give you film and music related content.
Today we are here to
Off the top of my head, we're going to review Barbarian, directed by Zach Cregger.
okay, let's do that.
This is going to be a spoiler filled review. If you hadn't seen the film,
Spoiler alert, spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert, yeah.
Also, we'll do what we always do. We'll start with what we didn't like, the bad, move on to the good, then do an overall and give it an out of 10 score each, and of course, an average. Two of us. And let's hit with the IMDb synopsis.
Okay, so a woman staying at an Airbnb discovers that the house she has rented is not what it seems. Basically, in a rundown Detroit neighborhood, there's a single decent-looking house which is maintained by some property management company and is rented by Tess, our heroine, played by Georgina Campbell. Tess arrives in the dead of night in the pouring rain to the house, only to discover that it has been accidentally double booked by Keith, by the property management company, and Keith, played by Bill Skarsgard, is already renting the house. So,
Pennywise
is renting the house she's renting. Yeah. Okay. So after clarifying that Keith is not a mass murderer, she spends the night in the house, and from there things only go from
bad to good to bad to worse.
From bad to good to worse to oh shit, let's get the fuck out of here before we all die. So what I didn't like about the film. Okay. So in this film, I'm assuming that whoever watches this review has already seen the film. The house has a dungeon beneath it, which has a boogie woman in it. And the first thing that bothered me looking at her entire character, the boogie woman has been able to survive for 40 years. In that dungeon, and not only survive, apparently she can be a UFC fighter. Since she has superhuman strength, she could withstand a jeep ramming into her and dropping out of a 50 feet tall water tower on hard asphalt while being unscathed. So that kind of messed with me because that same motif was in The Hills Have Eyes and such films, and it's getting old.
She does a lot more. She runs through a wall. She rips off people's limbs and beats them to death with them. She has strength that is just
it's not calculable.
Michael Myers.
Yeah, it messes with my suspension of disbelief because it needs further justification. Why is she so strong? And the outcome of inbreed, she's an inbreed. It was explained that she was an inbreed decades long dungeon contrived by a madman who was his thing. He was used to kidnap women and impregnate them and grow and then have sex with his offspring and impregnate them as well. So this woman is the result of a decades long inbreeding, which should have made her too weak to walk. But no, we get Dolph Lundgren with breasts. Second thing that bothered me is at some point, Tess escapes the dungeon and she walks for hours in the streets in that neighborhood and until she finds a police officer. The police officer is kind of reluctant because she looks disheveled. She looks like a delusional crackhead, but he is convinced enough to go check out the house in question. So and he sees the broken basement window through which she escaped. And he decides at a certain point, after he's been called to a more urgent issue, he decides that the house doesn't merit any further investigation, and he leaves the woman. What bothered me in that scene was there is a brand new Jeep, Tess's Jeep, on the street, in a street where there are no new cars. So the Jeep stands out. A simple running of the license plate would corroborate her story. He didn't do that. His disbelief just didn't work with me. It didn't connect. I had a problem with that scene because it wasn't properly built.
It's him dismissing her altogether. Yes,
his dismissal of her. Yeah. So finally, another thing that bothered me was Bill Skarsgard's character Keith, who I felt was underutilized. His function in the film was to be a misdirection. When you see him, and he's a good cast for that too, because when you see him, he looks harmless and threatening at the same time because he is Pennywise. So he's a tall white dude who looks like he can do harm, but he kind of makes you wonder about him, which is exactly why he was cast. At a certain point, he gets killed off. in probably the dumbest way possible. And it just it didn't add up and was extremely underwhelming. And I felt like the film was missing an opportunity to utilize him better. So that I had a problem with. And these are all big issues. And aside from that, there was a nitpicking thing that then also bothered me. But it's not, it's easier to swallow than the three that I just mentioned. The woman having superhuman strength, the police officer's dismissal of Tessa's complaint, and underutilization of Bill Skarsgard. We are told that the boogie woman comes out at night. I'm guessing she comes out at night to eat. And we know that the only way throughout the dungeon is through the basement door. And we know she uses that basement door because she was the one who opened Tessa's door the first night Tess slept in the house. But we don't know how she was able to come out the basement, because we know that they sat on it. The basement door keeps shutting closed because it's probably hanged unleveled. So how did the boogie woman walk out the basement through the dungeon and walk out the basement? Because the basement door is always shut locked. So that kind of bugged me a little bit, but that's nitpicking. But these are the things that I felt worth mentioning in the discussion.
Okay. Well, just on your points, just a couple of thoughts. One of them, the fact that Bill Skarsgard's character was a misdirect, actually kind of shows that they did use it well. They used it for what they wanted to use it, and it worked.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I think he was underutilized. You know what I mean? Because it had to be somebody known that you would think would be there until the end. Somebody who was the potential killer. That was actually kind of clever, I think, using him.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, we can disagree on that. That's fine. The thing is, with her going out at night, it wasn't only for food. There was one more reason. Find herself a baby.
A baby. Okay.
Which is obviously, it doesn't have to be an actual baby. It's usually an adult person that she kidnaps and treats like a baby.
But she did mess with the guests. She didn't mess with Keith and Tess the first night she came out.
She doesn't mess with the guests. She picks those people from other places. So we kind of have to assume that her father, Mr. Serial Rapist, who built the whole thing, actually made her aware that they should not get too much attention. And it is almost kind of hinted that what she's been doing is she's been taking homeless people from the area and using them in that regard. And obviously it doesn't work out. So eventually she kills them or whatever.
There are no bones, no dead bodies in that dungeon. So that kind of makes
not that we see. Yeah. There's a whole lot more to that dungeon than we've seen. So I don't know. Okay. She could take out their bodies. She could bury them. She could eat them. I don't care. I'm saying there's a lot that wasn't... the story doesn't go into. That doesn't mean that it's a fault, but it just doesn't go into that. As far as for me, I agree with you on the superhuman strength thing. I thought it was well exaggerated. The fall from the tower especially kind of didn't sit well with me. And again, I get the reasons that they do things, but her sort of almost barging through a wall, ripping off the homeless guy's arm and beating him to death with it, I thought was just a bit of bullshit, really, because I'm watching it and I'm thinking, okay, she did that. Yeah, that looked real, not. And it hurt the film because there was a certain quality to it, especially up to the point where, right after they kill off Skarsgard, that whole tension thing in the beginning, that was brilliant. And then the story goes another direction. Now, whether that's good or bad, it's a taste thing. Some people like that, some people didn't. I actually didn't mind it. It was actually where it went that sometimes bothered me, or how they went about it. To your point that where he gets killed, why is he on all fours? He says to her, something bit me. And okay, you get bitten in the leg. It doesn't mean you can't walk or run or limp or hop or whatever. You know what I mean? You don't need to be on all fours. That bit was just odd. I'm like, somebody in fear for their lives. Why is he not getting up and getting the fuck out of there? It was odd. More than that, I had issue with decision making by characters, which is often a flaw in horror films, because you kind of go, people don't do that. people are afraid of stuff, you know. When Tess first finds that door to the dungeon, she opens it and she wants to kind of almost go in there, and then she goes, "No way! Like, I'm not doing that."
That was good.
That is how a person acts. Then she found a way to bring some light into there, and she saw the stairs and all the rest of it. Eventually, she works out that she doesn't have any way out, so she kind of investigates a little bit, which to me was like, yeah, okay, maybe, you know. But when she tells Keith that there's someone down there, and that, you know, when he comes back, and she's like in this hysteria kind of thing, and she wants to get out of there, and she wants to take her with him, and he just completely dismisses her and goes down there without a weapon, without a backup plan, without anything, basically saying to her, "You're a hysterical woman, and I'll work this out because I am a man." That was completely opposite the character that he's been shown to be. Bill Skarsgård's character is represented as someone of influence, someone who's in the art world, kind of a well-known person, and also a really nice guy. He's really nice to her. He gives her the bed. He's like chivalrous.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, he is like this sexist man who just dismisses her as a hysterical woman for no reason. That didn't work for me. I'm like, why is he doing this? Why is he going to the basement? He's got no backup plan, no weapon. He just doesn't believe her. He just goes in there because she's hysterical and he's the man and he'll take care of it. That didn't work for me.
Yeah.
That was not a right enough reason for him to do that. So they kind of had me a bit around that point. Why was he such an asshole all of a sudden? There was no justification.
Yeah.
Before that, by the way, we didn't talk about that. This is a nitpicky thing, but she finds his wallet, she has a look at his license, and she takes a picture of it and does nothing with it.
Yeah.
When she tries to establish that he's not a bad guy or whatever, she doesn't, Google his name online to see that he's that he looks like the man he says he is. Yeah. She doesn't send it to someone and say, if something happens to me, can you check up on this guy or something? Nothing. So it's in her phone, which would have kind of died with her if he would have been, a killer. That didn't make sense. Again, slightly nitpicking, but why show it if you're not going to use it? I would have cut that bit out of the film just not to raise that question.
They started with that bit to keep you in to assist the misdirection element, but it just died out, and it's like they stopped writing about it. They forgot about it.
That's what I'm saying. I would have cut that bit where she takes the photo. I would have cut it out of the film just not to raise the question that I'm raising right now. Why didn't she do anything with it? Now, after Bill Skarsgård gets killed, the story has a sharp shift into basically Justin Long's character, AJ, driving along on this, open road in his convertible, enjoying life, singing that Tiki Tavi song that has meaning, but I'm not going to go into that. The way they went from him to connecting him to the property, that he basically was the owner of the property, and right at this time, he is accused of rape.
Yeah.
And he has to go through this whole trial. And now he decided that out of the properties that he has and whatever that he has to sell, he's not going to sell his house. He's going to go to Detroit and sell properties that are probably worth next to nothing.
Yeah.
Because of the neighborhood they were in, and there was just no houses there, and nobody would want to rent there, and all the rest of it, blah. And the coincidence that a house that is generally not rented often, all of a sudden is double booked by two people at the same time that the owner of the house gets accused of rape. He has to come there from another city, from LA, I think, to Detroit to start measuring up the property because he needs to sell it.
Yep.
I was like, really?
No such.
It's a suspension of disbelief. Is like, I was like, so close to give up on it at that point. I thought it was weird. Now, he goes to the house, he starts measuring rooms, trying to figure out, and then he realizes there's a basement. Does the basement count in the size of the house? He was told not really. And then he finds the dungeon. He's like, oh my God, this is all my property, which it kind of isn't, but never mind. And then he goes down there and he starts measuring up a room that has light in it, like there's electricity to there.
Yeah.
And there's a bed, a bloody handprint on the wall,
And
and a video camera on a tripod directed at the bed.
Yeah.
He bumps into the camera by accident as he's measuring, and he doesn't stop for a second and he go, am I in a snuff room?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what the fuck is going on here? How am I going to sell this property? This is a crime scene.
He doesn't check the camera. He doesn't even touch it. It's like it's not there. And I was like, there's no human being that would not be curious, at least. But they showed like everything he cares about, he's measuring and the size and how much can I sell this for, that he didn't see it.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, okay.
Again, and they sit on it. He's looking online to see how much he can get.
Because they used it for comic relief. And it's like, yeah, you know, most viewers are probably not going to give a shit about it, which is where I kind of go, okay, I watch films differently to other people, to most people, I guess. So I have to kind of forgive that because it's made for the general public, and the general public are probably going to, you know, not notice a lot of the shit that I do, and that bothers me, don't bother them. But still, you know, we're the one doing this review, so I'll say what, you know, what comes to mind. Now, we later find out that Frank, Richard Brake, who's the serial rapist and the father of this boogie woman, is there. He's sick. He's in a room, in a bed, you know, with all the tapes of all the women, you know, he's raped and all the rest of it. He's got tapes of all of them. Where does he get food? How do they live? How long has he been in that bed without a shower? What the hell is going on there? I wasn't clear on that because it would have been years that they've been down there, and there was nothing to give me some kind of explanation as to how they survived down there. And what works there and how, you know. They could have easily shown that there's a room where he stocked up food for 50, 100 years, you know, whatever you want. Just show me something. Yeah. Right? But they didn't show you anything. So it's like, okay, I don't know. Questions. Yeah. Again, this one's a bit of a nitpick, but, you know, I let all of these kind of slide. They just bothered me, but not to the point where I went, you know, this film is crap, but they did bother me. Frank killing himself. That didn't stand in my book as well, because AJ gets into the room, finds him, gives him water, shows some concern. He tells him, "Don't worry, man. I'm going to call the police. They'll be here any minute. You know, they'll get whoever is doing this." I can't remember if you saw her at that point or not. You know, I'll get you out of here. And then Frank realizes that once they get there, they're going to find all of his tapes. They're going to see everything that he's done. So he's screwed. So he reaches to this drawer, pulls out a gun that looked like it's been cleaned, you know, every day, as you pointed out to me when we talked about it. And instead of shooting AJ, he shoots himself, a serial rapist, a complete psycho. Why would he shoot himself?
Yeah, he could have done that any day if he's tired, if he's depressed, he wants to die. Instead of shooting AJ, he shoots himself. Yeah.
It just it was too weak. It was too quick. It was too, you know, it didn't really make sense to me.
To the writer, you check the box. But that's what it feels like.
Now, I have another bone to pick with this film, which is really the overall statement made in this film. For anyone who's you know, who's a bit of a film buff, who may have seen it, Alex Garland's Men, a film that was released recently, I think it's trying to say the exact same thing that this film is saying. And it's basically, it's some kind of interrogation, but I would say an accusation of the patriarchy. So it's basically, you if you follow what the film is showing you, it's throughout the film, it just tells you that men are shit and women are good. And that didn't work for me. It was too like preachy. It pushes that point a little too hard. Look, a lot of people that I talked to didn't even notice it, but for me, it was like too in your face. It was too much, and it took over the film. Every male character in this film is being shown to be some kind of a chauvinistic pig in some way. And it starts with, let's go, AJ, who's a complete asshole. Frank, who's a serial rapist, despicable human being. And then the cop, who dismisses her, the other cop who doesn't say anything, you know, with him in the car, Keith, who dismisses her and doesn't believe her after showing that, you know, he's a good guy. It's like even the good guys are chauvinistic.
Yeah,
that's what the film's like telling me. And then again with the homeless guy who comes to help her, you know, he's coming in, he's trying to help her, he takes them to where he stays and all the rest of it, and he says, we are safe here, she never comes here, she wouldn't dare come here because she never does. And then she barges in through a freaking wall, like there wasn't a door or to go around and just come in because it's an open building, you know, and then she rips his arm off and beats him to death with it.
Don't tell them what
because
to do.
She's exactly, don't tell me what to do, I can do whatever I want, I am woman, hear me roar. Fine, I get it, but there's got to be a more clever way of saying it and not so in your face, pushing the point too hard, I thought. And then, you know, I got asked that question, who the title of the film refers to, Barbarian, you know, and they said, oh, is it the woman, you know, because she's like a barbarian? I said, no. Is it because the street is Barbary Street, you know? I'm like, yeah, all misdirects. Barbarian refers to men. It's just saying that men are barbarian. You know, AJ raped this woman, the other guy's a serial rapist. There's levels, but all men are barbarian. All men are insensitive to women, dismissive of women, think they're better than women, and think that women are just, you know, hysterical and all the rest.
Yeah. Well, a point on that, the film does what I've seen in many films. There's a spectrum for male characters, a spectrum of personality. They are, if they're smart and capable, they have to be villains. Or if they are good, they have to be either incompetent or mumbling idiots to the farther extreme, or mentally compromised. And the problem that I have with it, if such things stem from the story, then you can go with it. Then it serves the story. But when it's a clear agenda, when the agenda comes before the story, it stands out and it's weak, and it needs correcting, because the story needs to come first.
Exactly. I don't have a problem with, I'm not sure if Zach Cregger wrote the script or not, but whoever wrote this and had the need to say it, I don't have a problem with their political opinion. If they think that men are crap and women are great, that's fine. I'm fine with them thinking it. I don't care. I disagree to a point. I agree to a point. I disagree to a point. My problem with it is just what you said. It's badly written into this movie, because it's just so in your face. They push it too hard, and it's like characters do things that they're not supposed to be doing as real people. No one believes her. From, you know, Keith, the cops, her ex, which she mentions and we don't see, is the one who's trying to control her. Remember, that's why she's running away from a relationship, and she almost falls into another one with a man who, you know, all of a sudden shows himself to be just as bad. To you know, AJ, to the homeless guy, but she's good, she's nurturing, you know, she's strong-willed. Men are bad. You know, like AJ, who's a complete asshole.
Open season on masculinity, and the films are just a tool to serve that rhetoric.
Yeah. And there was something in this film also, I don't know if this is a good or a bad point, just a point that kind of struck me, is the line where somebody was talking about the boogie woman and said something about she's a copy of a copy of a copy.
Yeah. The homeless man.
Yeah, it struck me that that's a saying about the film itself. The film is a copy of a copy of a copy, because it uses up different types of films and puts them all into one, which actually, I guess that's a good point, because the film is divided into the, you know, the 3-act regular thing, but it's kind of 4 parts. In the first part, you have Tess. In the second part, you have AJ's story. And in the third part, you have Richard Brake, who's Frank, the rapist. And there's a 4th part where they all kind of come together. I like that. For me, I watched the film and it was kind of reminiscent of like a Tarantino-y style in the way it was broken up. And I really, really enjoyed that. So that's probably my good points. But we're up to your good points. So let's go there.
I really love the set design and the whole feel that the film gives, because, you know, I have a very soft spot for horror films, and it was my tune, it was my frequency. I really got psyched because of the trailer. It really showed exactly. I'm talking about all the not just the technical aspects, but the feel that the film gives, the lighting, the setups, the sound design, the cinematography, the amazing cinematography this film has, and
The attention to detail when
attention
they
to
went to
detail, of
that
course, yeah.
70s, 80s, or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah,
of course, yeah, and all these the wide lenses, the entire sequence with Richard Brake was shot in wide lens. I really loved it. It really amplified the experience to me. The fact that this film passes, I'm going to say my score later. It has a lot to do with the way it was designed. Bravo to
yeah.
whoever, yeah, to
The
wherever
way we
was.
went on our bad points, people are going to actually think we didn't like this film, which is not true.
Our problem is, our problem is not my problem. And I'm seeing your problem. It's not with the film. It's with the script. It's with the story of the film.
Or points in it. I have to say,
points, yeah, in the
overall
script.
idea and the way the story is told worked for me. But there were different points that I thought should have been maybe better handled.
Yeah,
you know,
the acting was extremely convincing. Bill Skarsgard, we know and love him, and Justin Long, and of course
Justin Long, yeah,
Justin Long, yeah. Richard Brake. I know him from a lot of things, but Rob Zombie films, and Georgina Campbell. I'm less familiar with Georgina Campbell. So she carries the film well on her shoulders. It's not a mean feat, and it's very noticeable, and it made the experience a lot more fun to watch. And I'll forever love horror films that have that atmosphere.
Yeah, I had a feeling that there was a sense of originality there.
Yep.
In the way that they tell a story and whatever. Like you said, the technical departments were
flawless,
fantastic.
Yep.
The camera work was amazing. The lighting had a major part in this, and it was great. It was handled much better than so many other films that we see out there today. The acting was top notch. The soundtrack was great. The way they build up tension, was really it really helped.
Yep.
In the good parts, the writing was great. Where it dropped off.
Yeah. It's like something intervened with a good story. It's like something from the side intervened with a good story.
And the editing was fantastic.
Yeah.
And the thing is, Zach Cregger, I think, is a really, really promising director. I've only known him as an actor and in comedy, as a comedian, kind of like maybe a lesser version of Ryan Reynolds, I have to say, because he was never in, got that big, or he'd been in that sort of bigger productions. But he was funny, very amusing, and he was reminiscent, I don't know, reminiscent of Ryan Reynolds in the way he delivers humor. And I can't wait to see what he does next. I just hope that it's not going to be such trying to shove a message down your throat kind of film. I'm more hoping to see something that is a bit better subtexted.
Yeah.
And I felt like here, for a lot of people, it will be under the surface. They're not going to see it even. They're just going to see, there's this horror film. Look at the amazing ideas. Look at what, a lot of people have already been talking about it, which is why that part was disappointing for me when I watched it, because I thought, any writer and any director should at least know or try to hide these things a little bit better for the viewer, for the viewing experience. I don't know. I mean, I'm fine with getting your politics out in a film. That's fine.
I think I think that in writing like that and having the agenda, cross into your story, there's an element of pandering, which I don't know, maybe helps the artist feel better about himself. Maybe Zach Cregger feels guilty over the patriarchy, or it could be something. It could be a variety of reasons. One of which could be securing funds for the film. We don't know why he wrote it like that. It could have been out of his hands. One more point regarding cinematography that I really enjoyed in the film. There's in the Richard Brake sequence. The entire sequence is shot with a extremely wide lens, and you kind of everything is distorted. You're kind of put in his distorted world. And he leaves the house and he walks into his car and he starts the car and he starts driving. The camera walks with him and it enters the car through the back window. Now, it was amusing to me to see. I mean, there's a positive point. Back in the 80s and the 70s, this shot would have been almost impossible to get with that level of smoothness. but you know, when you see it from a technical point of view, you know that there was a guy in the back seat, there was a cameraman in the back seat, and then another cameraman holding the camera and passing the camera through the window. Where in back like 40 years ago, you had to have specially designed rigs to have that happen. But it's easier to make these expressions nowadays, and it always inspires me to look at films in a way that it's easier to get the amazing shots, where in the 90s you wouldn't have an aerial shot, you had to have a helicopter up there, and now you have drones and all these different kind of elements that serve cinematography in films, and was really nice to see.
I don't recall the name of the cinematographer here, but we should probably have it down below. Because the cinematography and I have to say the lighting, the editing, everything has just been so top notch in this that it just it kind of gave me hope as far as horror filmmakers can still make something interesting. I mean, there's still a few around. Of these sort of young ones, like we mentioned Jordan Peele earlier, and Ari Aster, and those kind of filmmakers today. And Zach Cregger, I think, has just been added sort of to the list because this is still an achievement. This film, it's interesting. It grabs you, and for all its faults, it's still a very good film.
Yeah, just take politics off of screenwriting and focus on good stories. Focus on good causality.
Yeah, and on the surface, it's a great film. For people who don't see below the surface and don't understand these things, for entertainment value, they're really going to like it. They're going to leave the film and they're going to not even know what Zach Cregger was necessarily trying to say with it. And for people who get the message, it might be a bit less so, and it's not really about agreeing or disagreeing with the message. It's more about the way that it was shoved down our throat a bit too forcefully, rather than make it naturally and good. But still, for me, out of 10, 7.5. Which is high.
I'm saying 7.5. Yeah, it's
high.
So
it's high. Yeah, I would say it's a very good film, almost great film.
Yep.
And in some departments, it is that great.
Yeah.
But others kind of bring it down a little bit. But 7.5 out of 10 for me, that's very good.
Yeah. The fact that it's an almost great film that received a 7.5, the specific problems that the story has shows how severe they are to make it a great film.
Yeah. If they would have solved a few of these issues, it would have brought it up considerably, because it wouldn't have been necessarily like a groundbreaking film, but it would have been changing the current trend with this type of horror, where it's been getting a bit boring, I have to say, with a lot of, slasher type films. A lot of them really get into the humor too much, so they kind of get away from the horror.
Yeah.
There is a lot of good stuff, of course, but more not so good stuff. So this one, I would still put it in the very good horror category, and definitely highly recommended to anyone who's into horror and those kind of dark thrillers. I always say, go check it out, whether you agree or disagree, but then again, this is more a review for people who've already seen it.
Overall score, 7.5, 7.5.
7.5, and I think we're both looking forward to seeing what Zach Cregger comes up with next.
I like him. I like Zach Cregger. He's good.
Yeah. Like I said, even though I'm not up with the message here and the way it's delivered, I do have a lot of respect for him as a filmmaker.
Yeah, I think the distance between what he does now, Zach, and to becoming a great filmmaker, he's not far. I mean, he's there.
Not at all.
He just needs
not at all.
He just needs better stories, better script. Yeah, better script. Yeah.
And even this, it was a good script. It just took it would have taken a few tweaks, and it would have been fantastic.
You need to go back to basics. Yeah, story's king. You need to remember that. Leave your ego, your agendas, your pandering at the door, and you keep your opinions. It's fine. I'm not trying to change anybody's opinions, but make good stories.
The message could have still been there if they would have taken the foot off the pedal a little bit. So you know what I mean? It's just But again, I did really enjoy it. I finished watching it and I was very much impressed. But at the same time, I started thinking about, what I saw and how I saw that.
If you enjoyed this video, guys, please like, subscribe, and click the little bell icon so you'll get notified on all our future videos. Share our stuff. It will help us immensely grow our channel. It will help us with the YouTube algorithm and encourage us to make more videos for you guys. Hit us up in the comments. Let us know what you think about our review of Barbarian. What do you think about the film? Thank you for watching.
Thanks for everything, guys. Thank you for sticking with us. And yeah, we hope to see you again in the next one.
Yeah.
So see you next time.
Get it?